So I am in New York City with the German Foreign Minister, who's on a whirlwind of a trip at the United Nations. And one of the goals here is to campaign for a non-permanent seat for Germany in the most powerful UN body, the Security Council. Mr. Wadephul, Minister Wadephul, thank you very much for finding some time to talk to us. Why even bother being part of the Security Council if in the world it seems the law of the jungle is more important at the moment than diplomacy?
I think diplomacy still is very important for this world to prohibit the jungle, to win the race. Of course, we are under stress. The UN system is under stress. The whole international rules-based order is under stress. But we are defending the United Nations system. And there's no greater, no more important peace organization than the UN. So that is the very role also the Security Council has to play. Unfortunately, recently often blocked by others, but we see still the Security Council as the most important council where the core questions of peace, stability in the world are discussed and hopefully solved.
But you seem to be going down very different paths than the United States. Would you agree with that?
No, I won't. We are allies. We, of course, have long-standing relations. We as Germans should never forget which role the United States played in allowing us to be reunified, before that freeing us from the Nazi regime. So we are core friends and we are allies in NATO, and our role is to play an important role in the alliance in Europe, to be the most powerful conventional army in NATO. This is what the Chancellor said, and this is the role we have defined for ourselves.
I'm glad you brought the Chancellor up, because he said something interesting. I believe it was on Monday. He said that the US was being humiliated by the regime in Tehran at the moment. Is that what he said there, you know? Is that going to be a problem for transatlantic relations?
No, this was a clear warning to Tehran, and not to misunderstand the whole situation. The US has still assembled a lot of military equipment around Iran. We are now in a ceasefire situation, fortunately, but this time has to be used also by Tehran. And what we currently see is that Tehran is playing for time and not really negotiating in a way which is necessary and which is needed.
But I mean, the word, and you know Donald Trump, the US president, and his administration, chances are the term humiliate is not going to go down well there. Do you think it's the right choice of words?
No, it was addressing the behavior of Iran, and it's a bad behavior what Iran is right now doing. And they are, as I said, misunderstanding their position and overplaying their role. So this is what the Chancellor has said.
Because we're talking about US relations with the EU, with Germany, what's your assessment of the status quo right now? There have been some difficulties. I think nobody can deny that. Where do we stand at the moment?
At the moment, I would say the alliance is going into a next phase. Last year, we had a very important summit in NATO where we agreed once again that Article 5 matters and that the US is defending also Europe. And on the other hand, that we are stepping up our efforts to strengthen the European pillar of NATO, spending 5% of our GDP for defense, which is important. So and now I would say in this year we will concretely define the burden shifting between what Europe does and what the United States are contributing.
So again, stressing partners, not competitors, but we have the UN, an 80-year-old institution, and then we have Trump's Board of Peace that was founded in January. Isn't that competition?
Yeah, maybe sometimes in a competitive situation, but if you look to the whole situation in the Gaza Strip, the Board of Peace was very, very useful, and it was the United States who brought the 20 points plan on the table. And of course, this has now to be implemented. This is also what the Board of Peace is for. But on the other hand, if you look to the rest of the world, I would say the UN system is our board of peace, and this is what we are defending and where Germany is engaged on.
It's been kind of quiet regarding the United Nations lately, especially talking about the war in Iran. Would you agree with that?
I would agree that the UN should take a more active role in the future, show that they are ready, willing and ready and able to solve crises and to prevent, of course, these situations to become really a conflict or also a war.
There's a saying, don't let any crisis pass. What's the saying? I got to look it up. Don't let a good crisis go to waste. How can we do that in this situation?
I think we have to take the crisis as they are. And beyond the crisis, there are, of course, conflicts. And we have to mediate these conflicts. And this is a role Germany can take, especially, of course, hopefully, in the Security Council.
And what's the role of diplomacy in this? What can diplomacy realistically achieve and how?
Yeah, diplomacy is, I would say, a task of understanding, of listening to others, and of course outreaching to complicated partners as well, with whom we sometimes do not share a lot of values or interests, but always be open for that. And that is to avoid, of course, that the crisis could evolve to a real war. So this is what diplomacy is still for, and it is more needed than ever.
How do you do that when you're here in New York at the United Nations, concretely?
Yeah, I'm meeting also here persons from countries with whom we have a lot of conflicts and with whom we disagree on a various scenario of aspects, political and economic aspects, who are organized in a very different way than Germany is as part of the European Union. So who are not a full-fledged democracy, who do not have the three branches as we have them in the Western world. So, but we have to understand them and we have to be engaged with them. This is diplomacy and this is still needed.
And let's go full circle before we wrap it up.
Yeah.
You're here to campaign for a non-permanent seat at the Security Council with the role you just described for Germany. How are the chances of Germany getting that seat?
I would say the chances are good, but it's a competition and it's democracy, so we can win, we can lose, both is possible. We have good arguments. We are engaged in this world. We are engaged in the UN system as the second largest donor. And we have some experience because we have for 6 times been already as a non-permanent member in the Security Council. So we have some good arguments. We are campaigning for us, not against others.
If you had to put Germany's campaign into one slogan, what would that slogan be?
The slogan is, I would say, take a country which has experience and which has the interest to have more understanding for other countries and for other continents.
Minister Wadephul, thank you very much for this conversation.
My privilege.